Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Barbell Baddies podcast. I am your host, NPC wellness competitor, Marisa Beltran. On this podcast, we'll be talking about fitness, bodybuilding, mindset, self-belief, and all things in between. If you're a person who is interested in going to the gym, wanting to learn more about bodybuilding, wanting to create better habits to achieve your goals through self-belief and mindset, then you're in the right place. Before we start, how are we feeling? How are we all doing? How has everyone's week been since we last chatted? As for myself, I'm feeling mentally and physically, I'm feeling okay. I think I'm feeling a little anxious because I do have a new goal that I want to accomplish that is coming up, which is calendar submissions for Hooters. I find myself having a hard time getting back into those prep habits, like waking up early to prep my food, ensuring cardio and workouts get done. And I think it is so much easier to stay focused when I know I have to be stage lean in a certain amount of time versus knowing I won't be on stage for like 8 months. I don't plan to be on stage until August, so I won't start prep until May. But I will say it's nice that I do have that goal of getting into the calendar, even though my cardio and calorie deficit for this goal will not be nearly as intense as it was for a bodybuilding show. But honestly, shameless plug. My tip number 2 put me back in check. It put me back in check and getting back into my routine. So to begin, let's backtrack. Let's backtrack to episode number 2 on my number 1 tip on staying consistent with your goals or, staying consistent with the gym. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I recommend going back and listening because tip number 1 is more important than this tip. But of course, just because tip number 1 is more important, it does not take away its effectiveness of tip number 2. Both tips done together is an almost flawless plan of staying consistent with your goals. And I'll be using the gym as an example because this tip I'm going to share truly helped me stay consistent with the gym. Any tips I share on this podcast comes from my own experience, so I'm not bullshitting y'all with these tips. In episode number 2, we talked about finding your why, your reasoning behind your goals, or wanting to start a new goal like going to the gym. So yes, you completed the Find Your Why exercise, and now we have a clear idea or reasoning behind your new goals. We're pumped. Let's go. My tip number 2 is really 2 in 1. Part 1 is make it as easy as possible for yourself to go to the gym. Make it as easy as possible for yourself to complete your daily tasks for that big goal. And yes, I know. Some of y'all are probably thinking, Marisa, what the F? I know this. This is basic advice. I'm not going to listen to your podcast anymore. And I agree. Well, no, I don't agree about you not listening to my podcast anymore. I agree that this is basic advice. Of course, please continue listening to this podcast. But this tip is so simple. So why is it that when I first started working out, I didn't follow this tip? And if you're someone who has not heard this tip before, then that's perfect. If you're hearing this for the first time, then you're actually really lucky because I read a whole book and then had a trial and error for a few weeks, probably actually a few months, before I learned how effective this tip is. And you, my friend, do not have to do anything except finish this episode and change up my examples I share to what works best for you. And I feel like even now, as someone who has a strong track record of going to the gym, I forget this tip. Sometimes events or people or things happen that disrupt my daily routines, and then it's hard getting back to it, and I start not doing my usual routine. If you're someone that experiences either of those situations, you are not the only one, bestie. But here's a little trick to it. This is the part 2. Not only make it as easy as possible for you to complete the daily routines like going to the gym, but reward yourself after. The book I read where I learned these tips from is called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'll also link this book in the show notes if anybody wants to read it. But James speaks about making it as easy as possible for you to complete your daily habits in addition to adding a reward because it will increase the chances of you actually completing it. The book Atomic Habits discusses the 4 laws of behavioral change that provided a framework for creating and maintaining good habits. These laws include making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. My tip number 2 relies on making it easy and satisfying. Going back to a routine or adding new habits to routine is a lot about training your brain that this is what we're doing now. This is our new identity. So to help your brain out, to make it easier to adopt this new identity, why not make it easy to complete and add a reward? Who doesn't love doing easy things and then getting rewarded after? You're training your brain that to experience those dopamine chemicals, you have to complete the task or you have to complete the habit first. It's really all about setting yourself up for success, planning ahead. What did Nipsey Hussle say? Preparation meets opportunity. Completing these daily habits is preparation for when the opportunity comes, you are ready. You're ready because you knew it has been coming because you've been prepping for it. You have been waiting for it all along. If you have no idea where to start to integrate tip number 2, let me share some examples to help you get the ball rolling. Something I do as part of my routine that integrates this tip is, number 1, I prep my breakfast the day before. And I'm not going to lie to you, it sucks having to stay up later to prepare 2 meals and pack it up after a long day. And not to mention another hour of cleaning the kitchen. But I know this ensures I'm going to eat that following day, and I'm going to specifically eat that meal because it's measured out from my meal plan. If I want to be a great athlete, if I want to be an athlete who sticks to their meal plan, then making my breakfast the day before ensures that. And the reward that comes from this is, I would say, it's a given of staying in a healthy weight and feeling good, but also I get to enjoy a nice hot cup of coffee. Since my food is ready, I can eat and enjoy a nice hot cup of coffee without having to do something because I'm rushing and having to multitask. Enjoying this cup of coffee literally makes me so happy. Those dopamine chemicals go through the roof. I honestly go to bed looking forward to that cup of coffee. And this is also something that helps set the tone for the day, and enjoying a slow morning is part of that reward. Having a slow morning is super important to me because I hate being rushed. Okay, example number 2, which is 2 examples in one. And sorry that everything is 2 in 1 in this episode, but that's okay because it's still potent, it's still effective. So for this one, the first part is I get up an hour and a half earlier before I have to get ready for work or before I have to get ready for the day. In that hour and a half, I take out the dogs on a 20 to 30 minute walk, and then I do a 20-minute meditation while doing traction prescribed from my chiropractor. And for those who do not know what traction is, it's basically laying on these blocks that stretch the muscles and joint structures around my neck and lower back. But back to my example, I am not always as excited as my dogs are for this morning walk, but the reward is seeing the dogs so happy and ensuring that they get some morning exercise for their health. If I want my dogs to live longer, they have to get their exercise in too. Plus, part of the reward is once I'm on the walk and that sun is shining, I feel so happy and so abundant. Also, in case anyone is wondering why I get up an hour and a half earlier and my to-dos in that time frame only takes about an hour, it goes back to having a slow morning because I know sometimes I just move a little slower in the morning. I'm just a little more tired. I just wanted a little more sleep, so I'm kind of walking around half awake. And I know that sometimes getting ready for the meditation or getting ready to go on the walk will just take me a little bit longer. So I give myself that extra time. So next, the reward for meditating while doing my traction is my mind is clear and at peace to begin my day, and my back is slowly but surely getting better. And I feel like another part of the reward is I get an instant relief when I finish the traction. All right. Number 3, my last example. My last example comes from my night routine, which is I try to not go to bed when I'm sleepy or when I have fallen asleep on the couch from watching my anime. I feel like what I like to do is I get into bed 30 minutes before my usual time of when I do get sleepy, and I listen to affirmations. I like to fall asleep listening to these affirmations because I believe that waking up from them helps me wake up in such a good mood. It does sometimes get annoying going to bed 30 minutes earlier, especially when I'm watching anime and there's some amazing fight scenes going on, or when I'm enjoying time with my friends or family. But I know that getting into bed earlier and listening to these night or evening affirmations help me wake up in a good mood. I also want to emphasize that these are just examples. There are so many different ways to make your daily habits easy for yourself and include a reward. Figure out what works best for you. You can also DM me or email me if you need help figuring out how to make your daily habits easy to complete and rewarding yourself after. In general, all these examples lead back to one point. And that point is respecting yourself enough to figure out how to make your habits easier and giving yourself a reward after completing them. You owe it to yourself. Stop sleeping on yourself and make 2024 the year where you make shit happen. And if you don't think anyone cares or no one believes that you can do it, I believe in you. I believe in all my listeners listening to this want to become the best versions of themselves. And I'm here cheering so loud for each and every one of you. To conclude today's episode, let's share some gratitude. Let me know in the Q&A box or email me or DM me 3 things you're grateful for today. And also, shout out again to those who did share with me in the Q&A box below 3 things you're grateful for. I love reading what you're grateful for, and I truly hope you felt a sense of peace after thinking about it. Okay, let's see. What am I grateful for today? And honestly, this is keeping me in check again because it is 8:09 p.m. when I'm recording this and I still haven't done this. So for me, I would say I am grateful for, and it sounds cheesy, but I'm truly grateful for everyone who supports and listens to this podcast. I feel like there is this community being built, and I love it because that's what I wanted. I wanted to build a community of like-minded individuals. Okay, number 2, I am grateful for days off. I had today off and I got to do what I need to do. Like, who does not love their days off? Number 3, my last thing that I'm grateful for today, I would say, honestly, my dogs, my fur babies. Because my dogs just make my life so much sweeter. They just always make me laugh. They are the best cuddlers. They just overall make life so much better. So, with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the Barbell Baddies podcast. And we'll chat again next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. This podcast was inspired from my obsession with anime and bodybuilding, so I wanted to create and find a community of like-minded individuals. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and a 5-star rating. Higher ratings and positive reviews can lead to increased visibility, making it easier for new listeners to discover this podcast. You can also follow the socials in the podcast description notes and DM me, email me with any questions, episode topics, or feedback. Bye!